New York City, one of the most visited and most desirable city break locations on the planet. A hive of bustling activity, iconic sights and attractions, and some incredible dining. A city synonymous with America and one seared into the consciousness of anyone who has grown up with even a slight interest in popular culture. Whether it's movies, TV, music, art or culture, New York has had a hand in shaping them all, making a visit to this incredible city a lifetime goal for literally millions of people. We love the place and make sure we visit as often as we can, but we can't help but notice it's getting a little pricey, and that is the understatement of the century. So we hashed a plan of seeing just how cheaply we could visit the city. Today we go super hard on the budget and really see how far we can push it, with some really big ticket items all snagged at bargain basement prices. We hit some really iconic sites, some crazy good food, visit the legendary Empire State Building, and even have time to grab some drinks on one of New York's rooftop bars. And that's just the starter as we shoehorn in one of New York's most expensive things to do for basically peanuts. Today is going to be pretty epic, but still super cheap, so come along as we really test our budgeting skills in a really extreme way. With $210 left, we are starting to feel pretty good about our budget, but today would be a big test as we are going to use up quite a lot of the remaining funds in one go. We intended to really get the max out of this spending spree though. After our free daily breakfast, we started the day early and headed down to the 9/11 Memorial to pay our respects as we always do when visiting the city. We did not have time for the museum, but we have visited this several times before and it's not required on every trip, but we always feel the need to at least visit the memorial, and it's a very moving part of any visit, and a little infuriating watching smiling tourists taking selfies oblivious to the fact that this is a gravesite and the final resting place of the victims who were never recovered. After paying our respects, we then popped into a nearby Starbucks for a coffee and some stable Wi-Fi to try and bag some bargain Broadway tickets. We knew a show was going to be a big ask on this budget, but with the Today Tix app, we had the chance to snag some rush tickets at a bargain price. We knew we would not get a big show like Wicked or Hamilton, but some of the mid-tier shows were certainly possible, and for only $47, tickets to the fairly new And Juliet had come up for the 2 p.m. matinee. We had been constantly checking the app for any bargain basement tickets, but had not had any luck up until now, so we bagged those and basically rewrote our plans for the day on the fly. As we said in the first episode, always have a plan when visiting a big city. Never just wing it or go with the flow unless you are happy seeing much less than you otherwise would. But always be ready to alter that plan, never be a slave to it, and alter your trip as mood, weather or circumstance dictates. This is the key to really unlocking a city. We still had some time to spare before our show, so we headed up to the Hudson Yard development and then hiked down the Highline. This is one of our favourite walks in the city and love the relaxed pace and elevated views you get, such a great use of a disused part of the city. Although while the park is still considered new, it's actually getting quite old and in fairly poor shape, with lots of running repairs as the construction wood has deteriorated and rotted quite badly. At the far end, we dropped down off the Highline to visit Chelsea Market, another boon in repurposing unused city space. This was the first day where we actually managed to get some lunch, and to be honest, it's actually really hard to choose something here, as there is just so many options and most of it looks and smells amazing. But we settled on a local meat company, Dixon's, who offered us an amazing pastrami sandwich and foot-long hot dogs for pretty reasonable prices, knocking 2 food items off our list as we split the meals between us. After lunch, we headed over to the Little Island Pier. We were not specifically trying to find repurposed spaces on this part of the trip, but visiting Hudson Yards, the Highline, Chelsea Market and Little Island, we realised all of these were actually repurposed parts of the city. It's always good to see people taking disused and rundown parts and turning it into something amazing. The weather had turned really bitter and cold, and this was the coldest day yet, so it was really nice to get inside and out of the bitter weather, and we were looking forward to a really fun afternoon. As we had used rush tickets, we were not able to choose our seats, so we were a little concerned about how good our seats would be in the theatre. But we needn't have worried as we had excellent seats. Rush tickets are a bit of a gamble, but sometimes they do pay off. And Juliet tells a unique and alternative story to the age-old Romeo and Juliet saga, in which Juliet is not actually dead, and what would transpire after the world found out about the events of the original play. Sounds serious, but that is completely not the case, and the whole show is a complete comedy with some really clever musical puns and takeoffs. The performance is really light and hilarious throughout, with music taken from the late 90s, early 2000s, and very pop in nature. Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney, that kind of stuff. This suited Kate down to the ground, along with one of the starring roles being performed by Joey from NSYNC. It was the perfect show for her. I have to say I was a little less taken, as it's not really my music, but it was still fun and was really clever in places. Overall, a great use of $47 off the budget, and we were so happy to have managed to include a show into our very limited budget. The show was longer than either of us had anticipated, and this left us very little time to make our next stop. Happy hour on the top of 235th. So with some deft use of the subway and some pretty brisk walking, we made it to the bar just in time to grab some happy hour drinks, 2 boozy hot chocolates and an ice cold beer and a glass of wine, only taking a modest chip out of the budget considering the drinks prices in New York and the incredible location. We love 235th and always make time to visit on all of our trips. However, this was the quietest we had ever seen it, and the freezing temperatures were really keeping people at bay. Fortunately, they had opened up the igloos to all, as these are usually for bookings only at busy times, so we were able to shelter from the cold but still enjoy the view. After an hour or so up on the roof watching the city light up, we headed down and off to the next attraction on the Go City Explorer Pass. As darkness had fallen, we headed to the top of one of the most iconic buildings in the world. Many people ask how many observation decks is it worth doing when you visit the city, and on the whole, we think people do too many, including us, but getting up high is a really great way to see the city, and we think you should do at least 2, mainly so you can see the city during the day and at night. We did the top of the rock by day, so we're doing the Empire State Building at night. The journey to the top is pretty cool, with lots of displays and exhibitions on the way to the top. On the 80th floor, you get your first look at the view and a full 360 view on Manhattan. Then you take the elevator to the 86th floor and the stunning outdoor decks. Luckily, there was very little wind this evening, and the deck now has infrared heaters, and this meant the cold was limited, but it was still incredibly frigid all the way up at the top of one of the tallest buildings in the world. Still, we would take the cold of an outdoor deck over the indoor decks any day, as you really have to be out from behind the glass to really appreciate the views fully. With the glass out of the way, the lights of the city just twinkle in a way they don't if you're stuck behind glass. After taking it all in, we headed down and off into the night to pick up tonight's dinner. After all the spending of the day, our heaviest budget day so far, we really needed a budget dinner, and there really can be no better than the 99-cent pizza shops. Okay, inflation has hit hard in the States, and the 99-cent pizza shops are largely gone. Instead, the slice price is now a dizzying $1.50, so still pretty manageable. As we arrived, a fresh pie just came out of the oven, and we grabbed a couple of slices each, 2 plain cheese and 2 pepperoni, and a can for a whopping total of $10 for the both of us. That should really help stretch the budget out into the 5th and final full day tomorrow. Speaking of which, we have a lot planned for tomorrow. We still have 3 attractions left on our Go City Explorer Pass, despite the fact we essentially broke even cost-wise today, and we have 2 really great attractions planned for tomorrow. There is still plenty of room in our budget to try and get the rest of the food items ticked off, but we are actually really running out of meal times. But overall, up until now, we've been having a blast. It really was a great feeling getting the show included into our budget, and it's looking like we can make it to the end of the trip quite easily. But we have one last treat planned for the final day, and that might mean a little splurge. So tomorrow, we have to be kind on the budget. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to the channel to see if we can make it out of the city with a budget cap still in place. Thanks for watching.